All right, here we go. Um, yeah, just put this on silent. Okay. Uh, so just a couple things that are coming to my mind right now. Um, did the 2 attachments this last week. Um, I don't really, like I said, those are just going to be impromptu things that just happen and just occur in the moment. And I love that when that happens. And like I had stressed in, I think, the second post, that those are just as critical, if not more critical, than this Zoom right here. I mean, they're all essential, but those things are some of the deeper, added, more profound things to what we're trying to understand as we talk on Monday mornings, as we do these. Um, and I would listen to them all the way through, try not to get distracted, because what's happening is as this download is coming, it's not just for me, it's for all of us. And and just being that conduit in the moment. And you've really got to listen in those moments. That's like quiet time. That's for me, in order to understand and receive those ahas that I get in that moment. It's real quiet time. It's no distractions, and it's really tapping in. And that means getting your vibration in a certain frequency and not having all these other distractions and things that are popping up. That might be asking a lot, but what's it worth to you? But I just want to bring that up, because it is going to take it is asking a lot to really quiet the mind and these other vibrations, these other thought frequencies and distractions and challenges and stresses that you're having in life. You can't entertain multiples of those at a time and really get that download that's needed to internalize that self-discovery where it changes you, where you are a changed person and you look at something differently. Like I know a lot of people are picking up that book, which Malcolm introduced me to, which I love it, and so many of you are loving, is the Leadership and Self-Deception. And you're tuning into it, and you're getting these ahas that because you're doing it on that level, and the book is written, and the audio especially, in such a great way that it does tune you in if you just listen to it, and it changes you. You can't unlearn some of that stuff that you're learning, or that you're hearing. And that's what I want with the attachments. I want it here as well, but in the attachments is where I feel like the juicy stuff, right? The stuff that you can't really get to it either, and just that's why you got to listen to the whole thing. It's like this abstract thing that's being downloaded, and it has to just be keep talking around and through. And I saw somebody post something in one of the YouTube comments, like, minute 48, that was it, bam, right? And it wasn't that I wanted to like try and string people along to get them to hear it, eventually, or that I was just waiting to hold on to it. And then all of a sudden, that was an evolving process of how it all collapses down into words that can come out of our mouths. And so our ears can pick it up and hear it in a certain way. And I would say the stuff that was said before, it was stuff that I needed to internalize and that you'll need to internalize as well. So, don't get bored. Like I said, it's pretty methodical stuff. It's kind of like math. However, I don't know how math is really practical in application on a certain point. I don't know where trigonometry comes in or geometry comes in for me on a practical application, but it is kind of like that kind of learning. However, the practical application of this information is huge in what that could do for you and the payoff, because you did. And you'll see, you guys, you want to see human nature and paradigms taking people out, watch the views. And as we progress, as we start getting into week 6, week 7, week 8, you start watching how many people watch those attachments. The numbers will get fewer and fewer, because there's this whittling out process that happens from people that aren't persistent. And somebody shared something today or the other day, Casey Pluff tagged me to something about, and it was Simon Sinek, I believe, talking about persistence and consistency. Very powerful. I mean, that's what makes people successful. It's that compounding effect that happens through consistent, persistent, focused, not different directed focuses in different areas and different dynamics, and you feel like they're the same thing, and you're squirrel and you're going to something else. There is an absolute fulfilling process that happens from very extreme focus in minimal. We hear minimalism now, or where people are minimalizing things in their lives. Minimalize your distractions, okay? And that's a discipline. It's asking a lot of an individual. Okay, all right. So I do want to go right into reading the book. However, I did have this thought this morning that I just want to share here. Don't look at things as needing to be turned around, and I fall into this, and it was just an aha that I had this morning as I was pondering and doing my own personal studying. I was actually doing my 3x5 cards and praying for God to give me greater capacity to be clear, to be focused, and to have greater faith and greater things happening, like a greater capacity to create greater, things in my life and in the world. And the thought came to me, don't look at it as turning things around. Like the world needs to turn around. We need a change, right? Don't look at it like that. Look at it as here's your starting point where you're at right now. And it's where you are. I am here. And there's greater capacity to see and have great vision, right, for what's possible. And the big dream is out here, right? So what I want to do is I want to expand where I'm at and just expand it out through a certain scientific way, which we're going to learn as we go through Wallace Wattles. So as we expand it out, our ability to visualize and hold a visualization in a very specific way, right? We can see things afar off out here. And I don't want it to look at as like, there's going to be very specific steps that we take that are in alignment, right? So this expanding process, it's being shown in a circle, out this way, and it's expanding. That's kind of how we look at it, but that's not expanding. We want to make sure we're staying focused and being able to hit the physical actions in a very precise, like the kingdom of heaven, like the pathway is very straight and narrow, right? But so we have to work within very narrow parameters. There's not a lot of wiggle room. There is some wiggle room, but not a lot. But when we look at, sorry, you guys, I'm just kind of getting over this cold. We look at expansion as getting bigger and bigger and bigger, but we need to narrow ourselves. We don't want to expand all of the focus that we're giving in different directions. We need to stay very focused and very narrow-minded. But we do want to see this greater capacity. So this doesn't look like greater capacity out here. It looks the same as it does right here. But what I'm doing is I'm getting a greater vision, which is really represented in a bigger circle. It's more encompassing. But we have to work within strict confines of the law. And like I said, there's not a lot of wiggle room. There's, the law is a very jealous mistress, and if you start getting and working out here outside of the parameters, you're not going to end up getting out here, okay? So don't look at things as needing to be turned around, like they say in the movie The Secret. If you want to have more problems with drugs, make a war on drugs. Like give it a lot of focus and attention. Right? If you want to have, and Wallace Wattles talks about it in the chapter, don't focus on poverty, right? Don't talk about poverty and all the problems of those who are in poverty. So it's a very jealous mistress if you get out of these parameters that we have to work within. It seems confining, but it's not. It opens everything up. So what happens with our lives is it tends to open up like that. And so don't look at needing to turn things around. Look at where you are. And this goes along with the law of non-resistance, where we only want to stay focused on certain things in a certain way. If you don't, then you're breaking certain laws in your thinking that slow or paralyze your progress. So this is the thought that was coming to me, for me, in the desires that I have with my vision and, you know, this out here and I'm right here. So what I pray for is greater capacity to exercise faith, which is a mental discipline, to know what my parameters are. You can't exercise faith until you know what the principles are in exercising faith. That's why so many people get frustrated. And so some of the things that I was introduced to in Wallace Wattles is that there are principles that help me to mentally discipline myself so my capacity to exercise faith becomes greater. So what I want to be able to see in being able to expand my vision is to see things clearly and my objectives clearly, and then to have this capacity, this mental discipline to be able to do that. All right, so this is what came to me. Don't look at things as needing to turn the world around, which I probably was a little bit caught up in that right now. So I just need to stay focused on this right here. All right, so let's go into the book. And then I'll take a minute. And Jojo, if you want to read some of the comments too that we might need to address as questions or statements that are coming up that we can talk around. But let's go through and read some of this first chapter. And don't worry if your words are off a little bit in the book. Don't get so focused on that you're now concentrating on, oh, my words aren't right. I got to get the right book. And now you're missing what's being read. The books should be pretty similar from, company to company that have published them, unless you have somebody that's giving their own commentary on it. So chapter 1, the right to be rich, the right to be rich. Whatever may be said in praise of poverty, the fact remains that it is not possible to live a really complete or successful life unless one is rich. So right away, somebody might look at this book, like, you ever hear of book burning, where people want to burn books because they think that what's being taught in it is of the devil, and so they can't see the forest for the trees, and they get so caught up with what's in their paradigm that they are like one of the students that Bruce Lee says, it would be no good for you to even come to me. You already know it. You're not going to unlearn the things that you've already learned that were wrong, so I can't teach you how to do it right? So we got to be careful of that. No man can rise. Excuse me. No man can rise to his greatest possible height in talent or soul development unless he has plenty of money. For to unfold the soul and to develop talent, he must have many things to use, and he cannot have these things unless he has money to buy them with. So that's just common sense right there. You either have to agree with that part, or your paradigm shuts it off and won't allow you to even have a conversation around that, because you're too guarded, you're too protected. And when I say that, I'm not saying you, I'm saying your paradigm. Your paradigm is like a thermostat, and it can start to create chemical reactions within you, and you see it in people who fall into that category where they start to get angry, right? They start to get angry. So just be aware of that and consciously decide that you're going to agree with what he's saying right there. There's no danger in agreeing that, yeah, you need things to be able to rise to your greatest possible soul development. I mean, to arise to your greatest possible ability and soul development, you've got to have things to use. You got to have access. You got to have knowledge. You got to have experience. You got to have tools, right? Could Isagenix do what they do without the income that they have? No, they need the warehouse. They need the machinery. They need, mines. They need employees that they have to pay. So the same thing for us. We have all these different dynamics that make up a full and a soul that's rising to self-actualization. All right. So the only reason I'm spending time on this is because you really need to recognize that. It seems so simple, and some people are like, okay, Dave, we got to move on. But your paradigm is really going to try to keep you stuck right there because, okay, so you agree with that. Now go back to the first sentence. You have to be rich. So now you have to say to yourself, I've got to start to pursue a course that is going to lead to me becoming rich. I've got to now pursue that. Like, that's got to be my main priority, because that's what he's going to get to here, right? Because if you fail to become wealthy, then you limit yourself in your fullest possible ability to rise. He's not saying what your paradigm is trying to tell you to say. Go out and start ripping people off and make money off of them and cheat them and lie and make money so that you can get money, you know, and do that at any cost and cause all kinds of destruction in people's lives. That's not what he's saying. That's probably what your paradigm's saying, not so clearly, but that's probably what your paradigm is overall, connecting all these things and creating a chemical reaction within you. Through your hypothalamus, that's putting thoughts together that turn into chemical compounds. Maybe I ought to show that. Let's do that. Let's see if I can pull it up here. I think it's in this one. What is this? Nope. Okay. Oh, there it is. It's this one. So if you look at this slide here, your hypothalamus is connected to your brain, which has all, you know, millions, billions, I think trillions of synapses that could be going on. And through those thoughts and images that are created by the brain, it impacts the hypothalamus, which in What the Bleep Do We Know? They say it's the ultimate pharmacy. It can put together any chemical combination to match what you're thinking. So the images and thoughts that we're exposed to, those come first, and then the feelings. And so you've already got thoughts and images already stored in your brain as a memory bank, right? So the hypothalamus, when it's triggered, will create chemical peptides in any order that will match those pictures and those thoughts. And then those peptides get into your blood and immediately start to dock into receptors on your cells. And there's the feeling. Now the feeling's being created through that right there. The chemical peptide that your brain just created through the hypothalamus is now in a dock on your cell, right? And that's going to create a vibration, which creates a feeling, right? So your subconscious is doing that to you right now. When you read a book, when you're exposed to anything, and so whatever you have as your paradigm, that thermostat, those memories, it's gonna create that. So if you're being presented to something new that contradicts it, it's going to create dissonance. All right, so I just want you to know the process of what's going on there. A man develops in mind, soul, and body by making use of things. So he's going to go on with the argument. And society is so organized that man must have money in order to become the best possessor of things. Therefore, the basis of all advancement for man must be the science of getting rich. Look at how we've arrived as a society where it used to be just strictly agriculture and self-preservation and all the work that went into just surviving. Well, God's moving us forward, and you have to look at the time freedom that we could now create through the evolution of society and the bartering process, right? So none of this is on accident where we're at today. The communication system, it could be both bad and good, right? As far as the internet goes. So we're where we're at by God's design. The object of all life is development, and everything that lives has an inalienable right to all the development it is capable of attaining. Now remember, we're the only creatures, the only living beings that have the mental faculties that we do. Memory, reason, intuition, perception, the will, right? And And there's one other one. There's 6 of them. But anyways, we're the only beings that have that. So that gives us unlimited capacity to evolve. And yes, some people are selling that birthright for a mess of pottage, you know, in Esau's, the example of Esau's story. And so, you know, what are you willing to forsake that for? What's on TV tonight? You know, what's going on in the afternoon on daytime TV, or what the gossip is, or the news, or just, you know, not even pursuing anything proactively, just living and reacting. So every single one of us has this inalienable right to development. And I would say today you could develop pretty much as fast as you want now. Man's right to life means his right to have the free and unrestricted use of all things which may be necessary to his fullest mental, spiritual, and physical unfoldment. Or in other words, his right to be rich. So he's still arguing the case here. Do you agree with that? That, yeah, that is my right? I mean, right in the beginning of, is it Genesis that says that we are able to command everything? That we have command over everything in the earth. Right from God, he's telling you, look, you have the capacity within you to command all things. So, so you either agree with this or you don't. And I just don't see how you couldn't. So, and somebody's making some noise in the background. There we go. Which one of you, okay, so we already went over that, talking about a parent that would say, yeah, child, you could dream about whatever you want, but you just can't have it all. So just settle for what you got. You know, I've always been a mechanic, so you have to be a mechanic. We've always been on welfare, so you've always got to be on welfare. And your kids are going to be on welfare. You can't change that, right? Which one of you would say that to your child? Well, God's saying that to us. Are you resisting him? Or are you embracing it just like you would expect your child to? All right. In this book, I shall not speak of riches in a figurative way, okay? Not figuratively. To be really rich does not mean to be satisfied or contented with a little. No man ought to be satisfied with a little if he's capable of using and enjoying more. And this is where you got to start to realize, okay, what is it that I desire? What is it that is popping up within me that I'm suppressing? In Sunday school, you know, Carrie and I teach Sunday school, and we try to get people to understand this concept consistently. Our message, and people are catching on because we've been consistently sharing this message in a way that is overcoming their amygdala and their paradigm. But, you know, in your pursuing the kingdom of heaven, you know, where God says everything that he has is yours, you know, what does that mean? To live with God again. If you're wanting to go back to God, what does that mean? You just sit at his feet and you just sing songs in front of him all day? If that's what it is, I don't want heaven. I don't want to just sit in front of somebody and just, you know, bow down to them. And that's not what God wants either. What does it mean to return to heaven? And if it's to have all things, then is that something that we need to wait for? Or is it because who I am today, won't I be the same person I am when I die? Or is somehow I all of a sudden have all of these talents and abilities? You have to learn and create and understand these abilities, right? So again, in this book, I shall not speak of riches in a figurative way. To be really rich does not mean to be satisfied or contented with a little. So this is where some people will just go their way and not walk anymore with Christ, right? Not go that way anymore, because it's going to cause a change in the person. There's going to be something demanded of the person. If this is true, then that means I need to get off the couch. That means I need to start expecting more of myself, right? And some people just aren't ready to go that way. They're not ready to go there. No man ought to be satisfied with a little if he is capable of using and enjoying more. So the right road or the left road? Do I self-betray and then start to justify it? Or do I take the right road and start doing what's demanded of me? The purpose of nature is the advancement and unfoldment of life. It doesn't come for free. And every man, and you think about this, if you're going to become rich to where you can have the unrestricted free use of time, money, and resources, and that there's going to be a demand placed on you, to do that. Is that going to impact other people's lives if you do it in the right way, where you find a vehicle that's going to truly bless other people's lives? It's a win-win, which there is a law to that. That's in this parameter right here. You have to stay within that law to build a solid foundation that will keep going outward and expanding. And that law is the law of compensation, where you must find a vehicle. And if you can't find one, then one will be created. Thank you, Jim and Kathy Cooper and John Anderson. What they wanted to do for humanity was create a win-win scenario, create the healthiest, wealthiest people on the planet. And the only way that I know that they truly desired that is because the vehicle showed up to do it. Had they had some other secret agenda that was selfish, they would not have created a vehicle like this. They didn't create the vehicle. God blessed them with the vehicle and the unfoldment of that vehicle because of the desires in their heart and the vision that they were holding lawfully. Okay? So there was definite demands that were placed on Jim, Kathy, and John to stay within that. There were demands placed on them which they were really willing to rise up to. Even though it got hard and they fell down sometimes, they got back up and picked themselves up and moved forward. When you hold things the right way, which you can do, it doesn't mean you know all the actions, but if you hold the particular laws in the right way, which are all mental, the unfolding will continue to unfold in the physical world by being blessed from God. The law of attraction is not that you attracted it into your life. It's the law of being blessed by God. The physical unfoldment will be made for you, but you have to do things on a mental level in exact scientific way, right? So that's why you don't that's why you don't have to turn the other things around. You're not going to have anything to do with the bad stuff that's going on in the world. What you're going to do is create an unfoldment by being blessed because you aligned your lives mentally through your mental discipline in a certain and scientific way. So he's trying to he's working up to that. He's not even gotten to that yet. He's just trying to get your mind right. The purpose of nature is the advancement and unfoldment of life, and every man should have all that can contribute to the power, elegance, beauty, and richness of life. To be content with life, content with less is sinful. I have another book by Sterling W. Sills that says to be in want is a sin, because you have a desire, and if you're not reaching that desire, then you're negating the law. And if you're negating a law, that means you're breaking a law. And in religion, what does that mean when you break a law? You've sinned. So think about that. If you're not fulfilling your desires, it's self-betrayal, first of all, but it's also a sin. Not that it would be a sin of ignorance, right? Because you didn't know that. But it's not meant to make you feel guilty. It's meant to empower you. So he's wanting you to buy into this fact because it's going to put you on a course. If you'll buy into this fact that you must be rich, then you're going to have to put your life in a certain way, in a certain alignment with a certain vehicle, and hold yourself accountable. So he's wanting you to understand this process before he gets into what you're going to be accountable to. First, buy into this. The man who owns all he wants for the living of all the life he is capable of living is rich. No man who has not plenty of money can have all he wants, right? If there's something you can't afford to buy, then you don't have all you want. Something that you can afford to buy that you need in order to accomplish this. And he's going to also argue the case that it's not just about other people, it's about you enjoying life. It's about you enjoying the luxuries that life has to offer, not in a gluttonous way, not in an over luxurious way, but in a way that you get to enjoy and be fulfilled. So life has advanced so far and become so complex that even the most ordinary man or woman requires a great amount of wealth in order to live in a manner that even approaches completeness. Every person naturally wants to become all that they are capable of becoming. This desire to realize innate possibilities is inherent in human nature. We cannot help wanting to be all that we can be. Even people that proclaim that suppressing that part of life, like not wanting to be a part of the world, so to speak. God created the world. He inspired people to become great craftsmen, right? In art, in construction. I mean, for the person that's self-actualizing in their construction skills, shouldn't they be blessed by that, by other people bartering with them to purchase their talent and their ability? It really made sense to me when because I was battling back and forth between, should I go buy a Honda Accord? I mean, it's going to get me from point A to point B. Or should I buy the Lexus? The high-end Lexus, the top-of-the-line Lexus. And what I realized when I drove the Lexus was that I enjoyed driving the Lexus much more than the top-of-the-line Honda. And some things were starting to play out in my mind as I thought about it. And it wasn't a pride thing and looking at other cars as I pulled up next to them and thought, you know, what a piece of crap that car is. You know, look at my car. I never thought that once. I don't have that kind of attitude. I'm not saying that people don't have that attitude, but I don't. I really enjoyed the luxuries that that car had to offer me. And I started thinking about, well, what about the people the craftsmen who have evolved to a level that they've allowed their capacity to see greater and greater ways of creating a greater and greater enjoyment and comfort. And what that does for me as I drive, and you know, them visualizing me driving down the road, enjoying certain benefits that were derived because of what they visualized, that desire that was brought out in them, right? So is there, would that be denying that person if I didn't support them in the desire that I had to purchase that vehicle? Think about that. And then I had to think about, yeah, but I wouldn't do that with a Ferrari. That would be too much. And then I had to think about that. Dave, really? Would a Ferrari be too much? Okay. Maybe I'm not ready to purchase the Ferrari on that level because I am totally content. But could I have a greater contentment? I guess it just depends on the different complexities and the different dynamics of the individual. I'm not a race car driver, but a race car driver would probably much more prefer that Ferrari than a Lexus, and therefore fulfill the desires that that person has within them. That's the beauties and the complexities of the universe that Whitsoe talks about. And it makes up for all the enjoyment of life on all the different levels that people are ready to receive them on. That's why we have no right to judge. There should be no judgment in the world on looking down on other people. So think about that with all of what he's saying right here. I'm just throwing some things out there for you to be able to think about and to be exposed to. And how, if that's true, then I've been looking at things in the wrong way. And then that would go back to the scripture that Sister Crockett brought up, Heather, right, about being content and taking that out of context and creating a paradigm around something that was erroneously taken out of context. And here's these laws that can help you to have everything that you desire for the fuller, greater expansion, and yet you're agreeing with something that's keeping you out of those parameters. You're keeping over here. It won't allow you to get in harmony with that law. And so what happens is there's a discontent, there's a dissonance, there's a justification, there's a rationalization, irrationalization. Is that a word? Irrationalization over here, because you're not experiencing what your soul is really knowing could move you forward. And in the movement of you forward, this is the divine thing about these divine laws and working in here. When you jump over to here and you start moving forward towards the realization of that desire that you have, that you've been suppressing and irrationalizing over here, in the movement of you accomplishing that, other lives are being blessed. It can't help but happen. Other lives are going to move forward. Not in the same way yours is moving forward, but in other ways that you're offering for them to have a win-win scenario, collaborated right here. Do you see how the world could become heaven on earth? And it could become that way in so many different dynamics, so many different complexities. Some people don't even like cars. Maybe they want to run everywhere, but they're going to need an awesome pair of tennis shoes to do that. Or do they settle for the cheap ones that they had to buy at the thrift store, which is suppression of their desire to really be wearing the awesome pair of tennis shoes and the knee brace that they need, or the supplements that they need in order to run everywhere. Or maybe it's a bike they want to ride everywhere. Do they ride the Huffy from Walmart? Or do they go down to the bike store where people have been inspired to do what they love to do and create this amazing road bike that makes your riding so much more pleasurable? You guys get that? And when you get into the alignment to be able to buy that bike, and you bought that bike based on compensation that helped other people to move forward in their different ways, how could that not create heaven on earth? And that's where we're headed, where people are going to start consciously being aware of their thoughts, feelings, and actions in accordance with law. I heard a religious leader share that the other day, not on the level we're sharing it, but he said, the only thing you're in control of is your thoughts, feelings, and actions. So people are getting there, you guys. We're getting there. There's nothing wrong in wanting to get rich. The desire for riches is really the desire for a richer, fuller, and more abundant life. I have come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. If you're not even able to jog because you can't even take the time off of a job that you don't even love, that's not an abundant life. You need to start following your heart, making your vision and your objectives very clear, start obeying the laws, and what happens is it takes you from this place in life where you're stuck and paralyzed right here, and it starts moving you into these parameters, and then the material world, your job changes all of a sudden. Something shows up. You didn't create that. That was a blessing from God because you started obeying the laws that he instituted, that you might progress and move forward. Doesn't that just make so much sense right now in this moment? But as you leave, as you go off your way today and throughout the week, your paradigm's going to want to pull you back over here. Frustrations and challenges are going to want to pull you back over here. Your inability to have the insight because of your finite mind is going to want to pull you back over here. You have to make this your number one priority, to stay within these two parameters and remind yourself every day what those two parameters are. The man who does not desire to live more abundantly is abnormal. And so the man who does not desire to have money enough to buy all he wants is abnormal. He made a pretty strong, commonsensical case. And how are you dealing with that right there? If you don't desire to have more money and to pursue it, then you're abnormal. Now you wouldn't feel abnormal if you don't agree with that, because you're going to go back to your paradigm that has put together erroneous calculations that are going to create chemicals that are saying, yeah, but I don't want to cheat other people. I don't want to be in the world. I want to be in heaven, right? And all of the things that erroneously have been put together here that are going to pull you back there. And you're going to betray, you're going to self-betray, because you self-betray when you're out of the box. Let's call this being in the box right here. And this out of the box. Actually, sorry, that's backwards. Being in the box is what we don't want. Being in the box, which really makes you feel like you're out of the box, you're actually in the box. What we want to do is get out of the box, which means we want to get in alignment with law, which makes us feel like we're constricted, but really we're out of the box when it seems like to the world we're in the box. Doesn't that make sense? It's like I heard somebody share an analogy yesterday. A child was flying a kite. So what we're going to learn here, and what you're starting to develop, this mental discipline that will lead to the mental discipline, you're developing an understanding and a philosophy. So this will help. A child was flying a kite, and he kept letting the kite out. He says, I just want that kite to get as high as it can go. And then he ran out of string, and the kite couldn't go any higher. So he decided, you know what, I want that kite to go higher, so I'll just cut the string. And when he cut the string, the kite just started to go crazy and just start to plunge crazily and erratically down to the ground, and bam, crashed and destroyed it because he cut the string. And the string was being connected to God in the first place. By being connected to God, it was allowing that kite to fly. It was being regulated in a way through law that it was able to fly. And when he cut and severed the string to law, the commandments, it nosedived and destroyed itself. And so many people look at the commandments as restrictions. No, the commandments, when you obey them, and there's more than 10, there's probably to us an infinite amount of laws and the levels that we can live them and understand them. I want to know as many commandments as I can, many principles as I can. And the more I understand those principles, the more string is added to my spool to take me higher and higher. I can never sever myself by cutting that string. And the only way that you could do that, it would be pride. It would be ego, saying, okay, God, I don't need you anymore. I got this. No, you always need to be tied to law, which means you're always tied to God. You see, that's how we become one. That's why Christ could say, I am one with the Father. Why? Because he's one in principle, and he knew all of the principles. Doesn't mean I have to share my complexities that I have to offer in the world the same way. I might want to run, or I might want to ride a bike, or I might want to drive a race car, right? But I'm going to do it within the confines of the law. I'm never going to sever that string. When you know that, you wouldn't sever yourself from God, because you know that it's these principles. I don't even know how I created physically the world that I get to live in today. All I know is I did certain things in a certain way, and they showed up. There's no way I could have known Malcolm. There's no way I could have known Cindy Talley or John or Kathy Rhodes, who have helped to create and manifest the world that I get to live today. There's no way. I didn't know Willie. I didn't even know that he lived in a town that was the first town ever in the United States. It's the oldest town in the United States. I didn't know that. I didn't even know he lived there. I didn't even know Willie. So am I dependent on God still? Absolutely. So I know never to sever myself from God. The chances of me getting ego and pride and giving up humility, slim to none. Could it happen? Yeah, I could fall from grace, but I'm not going to as far as I can help it. So does that make sense? So it actually, in pursuing the riches, it's going to tie you to God more. You're going to get to not know God more than the person who stays out here and thinks that they're serving God over here by denying themselves. Self-denial, people think that there's great honor in that. Well, there's a great discipline in that, but not a great honor. Honor would be moving out this way, not in denying the divine desires that are in you. You got to channel them, right? You got to keep them within the confines the Lord has set. But that's just obeying the laws, not what we pursue. If you stay within the confines of the law, you would never pursue anything that's wrong. But you have to know what those other laws are, like the law of compensation. There are 3 motives for which we live. We live for the body, we live for the mind, we live for the soul. No one of these is better or holier than the other. See, the person who's in, what did I call it? That they're in, not denial, what did I say? They deny themselves the desires of the body. The mind is like driving in the Lexus instead of the, you know, the Honda that had 300,000 miles on it, was rusted and the springs were coming through the seat, you know, on my car. Bald tires basically all the time, right? I was in denial. I was denying myself, you know, pursuing riches so that I could drive the Lexus. You guys know what I mean, right? He's out of balance right there. No one of these, he's lopsided. He's denying the body and the mind. If he could bring that over here and get the other ones in balance, bam, now that person's making a huge difference in the world, and he's attracting to him through his life, like a candle being on a hill, so many more people than he was over here. All are desirable, and no one of the three, body, mind, or soul, can live fully if either of the others is cut short or full life and expression. And we could be too far off on the other too, right? Going into the overindulgence, over extravagant, right? I think the word is gaudy or something like that. Being over excessive. It's not right or noble to live only for the soul and deny mind or body. And it is wrong to live for the intellect and deny body or soul. We are all acquainted with the loathsome consequences of living for the body and denying both mind and soul. So now he's trying to get us to understand there's parameters that you are going to live within. There's a discipline. Okay, so he's moved from your right to be rich now to like, okay, now let's narrow this down a little bit. And we see that real life means the complete expression of all that man can give forth through body, mind, and soul. Whatever he can say, no man can be really happy or satisfied unless his body is living fully every function. And the person that's living over here in self-denying the bodily passions, the Lexus or the Ferrari or the nice tennis shoes or bike, their rationalization is, oh, I'll get that when I die. I'll get that in heaven where the streets are paved with gold. Do you see the erroneous thinking in that? If that's okay there, then why would it not be okay here? It's just an incomplete understanding of the abundant life now. And then you throw in the talents, where we're in the Lord's vineyard, we're on the Lord's canvas, but he's given us all a paintbrush to design the picture that we want to design on his canvas. And some people are not using all the paintbrushes. They're using one color all the time. So again, do you see the irrational justification and the irrationalness of that, the nature of that? It's just because of an incomplete understanding. I don't judge the person who's denying. And let's take that discipline and add to it these other principles. What could we do with that kind of discipline once they get the other principles? Well, whether it's in this life or the next, when this life is over, we're not done. We're going to continue to go on learning. Even a bum that's living on a park bench is living a life that was worth living. Even in that abject poverty, they are still learning something that will be gained as we continue our progression as an individual identity. All right, so whatever, I'm going to read the rest of this paragraph. Whatever he can say, no man can be really happy or satisfied unless his body is living fully in every function. And what's coming up for me right now is, in your Isagenix business, you're not moving forward because of the irrational things that your paradigm keeps drawing you to right here. Remember, your actions are only a result. Everything that is going on in your life, you have to take 100% responsibility. It may be ignorance, but you still have to take responsibility for it. You're not a victim. You're a victim of ignorance, that's all. Not a victim of what other people are doing and how they're reacting to your message. Where you're at in your Isagenix business is because of what's going on with you up here. Right? So now we can start to course correct that. But I want you to identify where you're at in your business with where you're at in how you're reacting and acting both ignorantly and consciously. Right? So we can start to consciously learn some of these principles. And as you do, what's going to happen is your business is going to start to go forward. So I use that in this chart here. Remember, we're just thinking beings. Our actions are a result of our thinking. We're spiritual. Even though the entire universe was first created spiritually, go back and read Genesis and read the very first parts of what was created first. The herbs and everything. So when we're right here on our understanding, our results in our business in Isagenix is going to be right here. And when we come up against problems that our intellect doesn't know how to address, our paradigm will keep us stuck right here in our business because that's where our paradigm is. They're a match. So even the people that are showing up, the blessings or the lack of blessings that are showing up in your life are because you haven't figured out how to behave. You haven't figured it out, how to behave mentally, and then create those peptides that go into your blood. Once you learn how to behave on this level, the peptides in your brain change. Events can do that. And on your way home, you're behaving differently than you did. When the Forever Pack came out, are you as excited and as vigilant as you were when the Forever Pack first came out? Were you as excited and vigilant and energetic about the Eat for Free promotion, the greatest promotion ever in the history of sales in any industry? Are you as vigorously going out and sharing that and as excited about it when you were first introduced to it? Or did you go back to here now because your paradigm pulled you back here? Because when you went out and shared, you were sharing on this level and you were coming up against people that, needed to hear it on this level, and they just weren't even coming into your realm because you didn't know how to bring these people into your realm because you went back to this level on how you were thinking. And so you couldn't get these blessings. But when you start to progress and invest in your character and your personality through your understanding, in all thy ways, get understanding. Oh, how I love the law. It is my meditation all the day long. Through thy precepts, I get understanding. Therefore, I hate every false way. You'll get to where you can recognize, oh, I hate that way, right? I guess hate's a pretty intense word. I despise that way because you saw where you were breaking the principles, you were breaking the law. So the person who wrote this, was it Solomon? He despises that way because he didn't get the blessings here. And so he loves the law. He loves that kite string. He loves those parameters he has to work within because he doesn't want to live in a shack with a dirt floor. He wants to live in a palace. All right. Okay, so I think we'll stop there. Take some time for Jojo. I don't know if you've had, I'm going to make you a co-host. And if there's anything we need to address here. Are you there, Jojo? Are you able to, I'm not sure what you're in the middle of. I'm going to make it so everybody can unmute and then mute it back again. And you should be able to mute. Okay, if you want to unmute yourself, you should be able to. Anybody have any comments? Any questions?
Hey,
We're still building the foundation. Go ahead, Heather. we're still building the foundation for dealing with the paradigm, right? And helping you to understand what you're going through as you're reading the book. We haven't gotten into the principles yet, which again, that's why this is going to expand over weeks and weeks and weeks. But you can read ahead. You can start to try and understand these principles and move forward at your own pace that way. Heather.
Hey, Gabe.
Hold on. Heather wants to go, and then I'll go to you, Malcolm.
Hey, I'm on page, I don't know, 3, 4, something like that of my notes today. So I had a question, excuse me, I had a question earlier that is still there, and I just want to make sure that my thinking is correct. Let me get to where it was. By me doing the mental work and applying principles, then does the action come more naturally? I'm just seeing patterns in my life where I've done mental work and then the action, and it just flows naturally. And then I see patterns in my life where I'm trying to force new habits and force myself to do the behaviors, but I haven't necessarily been doing the mental work first, and it's hard, and I pull myself out of the game every time. So am I correct
I've talked about
on
this
that?
before on Mechanics a Millionaire. And so what are some of the studies that we know that could answer that? What are some studies that are out there that they've done that could answer that?
Some studies. Well, all I'm thinking of are quotes by you.
Well, there's a study that was done with basketballs. Do you remember what the three groups were?
Yeah. So I talked to my kids about this the other day. So where they had 3 groups of people, one where they didn't have them go to the gym or practice or do anything at all, and they evaluated their performance on both ends. Another group where they just had them doubling their, I think it was doubling, but they just had them doing the physical practice more. And the other ones where they didn't have them go to the gym, but they had them imagining themselves at the gym and sinking the shots. And the ones that were imagining at first, instead of actually going to the gym, actually outperformed all other groups.
Yeah. So that mental work will facilitate it. But when you combine it with the physical activity of practicing, it's off the charts. And so when we say people are like, I would always get this, Dave, you're so naturally inclined to do different sporting types of things, right? And you hear that about people, like they are just gifted. Like we'll say that about athletes, right? What it is they're gifted at focusing, seeing themselves as an athlete who's rocking it, right? They just automatically go to this place where they're the champion in their mind. And some people are naturally, for some reason, because of maybe their upbringing, maybe their spiritual progress that they made before they came to this earth, and that carries over with us. They're just, they have this ability to see themselves always on the podium, you know, always the champion. And I brought this up with motocross. What did I say about motocross when I picked up motocross?
Well, you saw yourself on the podium, even though the 6-year-olds were better than you. But
in the beginning, when I went out there, right?
Yeah.
But what happened very quickly?
Very quickly, you were out. Well, one, you were out there practicing longer than anybody else. Mm-hmm. And even when you were falling and getting mud kicked up in your face, you'd still see yourself on the podium every time. And then pretty soon you were on the podium. It was not long.
Yeah. It's, in fact, so much so within 6 months, I was beating somebody who had been racing since they were like 4 years old, or riding since they were 4 and they were in their 20s. They just couldn't believe that I'd only been riding 6 months. I don't say that out of pride. I say that out of teaching moments, you guys. I can't help but when I fall in the mud to think I'm just going to get better and better. I'm going to become the best. And people are going to be like in awe of how I ride the dirt bike. I can't help but do that now. I don't know what's created that, but that doesn't matter. You can consciously start to create that for yourself. So when I get into Isagenix, what am I automatically going to be focusing on? As I start to put together presentations that I have never done before, I've never been a public speaker. What am I focusing on? How am I focusing on that? The same way Michael Jordan focuses on a game before he goes into the game. He doesn't see himself missing the shot. He sees himself taking the game-winning shot. He sees himself as an MVP. And there's something that happens with that power that we know nothing about, the blessings that come from God, from us obeying certain laws, that speeds up your ability. When you do that, it speeds up your physical talent and ability to do that. You're not left alone to figure out how to do that. And you see the people who go into doing something with doubt, they never get good at it because they doubt themselves and they quit. But and I didn't realize that when I was young. I don't know if Tiger Woods realizes that when he thinks a certain way before he goes out on the green, that actually it's before he gets to the green. It's when he's been practicing, right? But he could negate that when he gets out on the green, not right away. He won't negate it right away because if he did, he would recognize it and he wouldn't do it. It's a very slow, continuous process that has to be consistent. And if you consistently go to a negative place in your head when you've been good at something, it will eventually take you out of being good. And we saw that with Tiger Woods' life when he had some drama show up in his life. And every time he went out on the green, not right away, but consistently, he got worse and worse. But what happened? He went back to his main paradigm, and right now we're seeing him going back and seeing himself as he saw himself before all that drama, right? So does that answer your question? Not only does it's absolutely essential that you hold the mental work first, or you would never get into any action. But the greater you hold that mental action and the more practice you do, hitting 1,000 golf balls or 5,000 golf balls while you're holding yourself as a champion will accelerate you so fast in your Isagenix business.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Malcolm, you were going to say something. I know we're a little bit over, but I'm good with that. Because this is where we get into the meat and potatoes, right? The good stuff.
So I went forward and read ahead and had something happen a couple of days ago. I talked on the last call. This is this is out of chapter 12 of The Science of Getting Rich. And Wallace Waddle says, if there's something today that may be done today and you do not do it, you have failed insofar as the thing is concerned, and the consequences can be more disastrous than you can imagine. Yeah. And I thought, man, that sounds harsh, but it's true. We were having trouble with the sticky button on the back end of the foreverpack.com. And I was worried about that, because I used to be a webmaster, and I thought, that makes us look bad and all this other stuff, and had these negative thoughts. And of course, I let go of that. And of course, came across another webmaster and showed her the website, because I wanted her to watch the video. And I just said, oh, by the way, you click on this button and put this password in to get into the back office. And she said, oh, it's not working, Malcolm. And I thought, oh, man. And I could have gone into that disaster scenario, right? Where, okay, here it is. We're already looking bad in front of a webmaster, but I didn't. My new identity said, well, look, you could probably fix that. And she said, yeah, I could. And I said, well, why don't you get me a price for that? And if Dave says, I want to get this thing fixed, Malcolm, I've got a price for him and somebody that can do it. And she said, okay, that's a good idea. And then I said, well, we've got a meeting on Tuesday. Why don't I introduce you to John Meyer, who is a specialist in cybersecurity, because he works with webmasters. And she said, I've been looking for a cybersecurity guy to help me. I better come to that meeting, right? And, I just automatically did that instead of, but I could feel myself being pulled into the negative, okay? I could observe my old old programming pulling me back into the negative, but instead I did what I'm supposed to do. And Wallace Wattles goes on and says, you cannot foresee the results of even the most trivial act. You do not know the workings of all the forces that have set moving in your behalf. Much may be depending on your doing some simple act. It may be the very thing which is to open the door of opportunity to very great possibilities. I don't know who this webmaster is really. I mean, I just met her at a networking event, but she might be the next Willie. You can never know all the combinations which supreme intelligence is making for you in the world of things and of human affairs. Your neglect or failure to do some small thing may cause a long delay in getting what you want. And I'm just so grateful that I do that and then read this, the same day. It's so wild, Yeah. I'm so grateful. And you guys are in, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what Heather was talking about. That put a healthy fear into me. That a paragraph that you just read put a healthy fear into me. You cannot foresee. It really helped me to realize the paramount and absolute essentialness of me doing all that I can do every day. Because what I started to see and experience was, okay, here's where I want to be, and I'm doing these certain actions, right? And I'm creating this kind of like web that's going out, right? But what's happening is God, the law of attraction, they say, well, you're going to be like a magnet and you're going to start pulling things towards you. That's the law of attraction is really a blessing. God's blessing me. It's not like this. It's not the force of a magnet that's doing it. It's God's blessings in my life, but it is like a magnet. So what I started to see was, this is the unknown area right here. This is me, and this is what's coming towards me. Towards me, that's a T. So, and I can't see this area right here. So how could I know that there's going to be a Malcolm or a Cindy or a John or a Willie that's out there, right? I can't know that. But what I learned from the book was there was certain things that I had to do, even though I didn't know what the result was going to be and how that result was going to show up. Well, I knew what the result was going to be because I was very clear on my objective of what I was going for, my objective. So when we have, excuse me, when we have, I just want to make this conclude, or this, draw these, this together right here. All right, so when we have an objective, we always know something about what actions we can take. When we have a clear objective, I want to build an Isagenix business, we know something that we need to be doing. Now, when we combine the thought process part, which is this right here, this is the thought process part. So what most people do is they just keep working really hard right here, and they don't do anything on the mindset, which Tony Robbins says is your first cause. So most people just keep working harder on the actions right here, but that doesn't change your results. This is what changes results, moving up here. So when I'm doing, when I'm working on first priority, understanding the principles, and then putting my life, my actions mentally in harmony with those principles, and I'm doing everything that I know to do, everything that I know to do about the objective I'm accomplishing. When I combine the two, when this is combined with this, the physical part that I could do, like Heather was saying, you can't have one without the other. But most people are doing this and not this part. Some people do this and not this part. You've got to have both. When you combine both of them together and be like a Jack Nicklaus, hitting 5,000 golf balls a day, and you're keeping the right mental attitude, you're always the expert. You're always the rock star. You're always recognized. You're always living a fulfilled life. You're always living an abundant life. There's no way. This is immutable. This result of you becoming the expert or the rock star, when you combine both of them and you know how to do it, not think you know how to do it, but you know how to do it and you're doing it, you always become the expert. That's how I always know if any students are actually getting it. Casey Pla, she got it and took off. How do I know? Because she went from 2-star to 5-star in like 2 months. Because she did it with such incredible, making it such an incredible priority and putting the exertion into both of them. At such an extreme case, came the rock star overnight. All right, anybody else? I know we need to finish up here real quick. Go ahead, Melissa.
I just wanted to put a little testimony to what Heather was saying, because of last year this time, I was training for that Alcatraz and I got pneumonia, and Dave and I and Cindy had a conversation about that and how disappointed I was and how setback I was, and I was going the wrong direction in my mind. And I was corrected in that to look at to really focus on the films and swimming in my mind every day, even though I was I wasn't able to swim or breathe. And so when I got my clean bill of health 3 weeks later, I was able to get, when I went back to the pool to swim, I did the same workout I had done 3 weeks prior with no glitch or hesitation or strain to myself. So I was right on track. And it was because of that mental practice I had done every day, doing my swimming for an hour in my mind.
Yeah, staying in those parameters, even when the going got tough and you were, and you had fallen out of those parameters just a little bit, right? Because you weren't doing some of the essential work to stay within those parameters. And that's the paradigm, you guys, that we talked about, pulling you out, coming up with the irrationalization. When you're over here, and you're living over here and you're moving forward and you go back over here, you start to backslide. And you guys, I cannot emphasize this enough. If you do not stay on top of this and make it a priority every morning, this world, where it's at right now, will pull you back over here. It's just that way. I'm sorry. I didn't make the rules. But we're going to get it to where we have more and more people over here, to where the people that are over here are going to be sucked into this. It's going to happen.
Happy birthday, dear Melissa.
Thank you.
Happy
birthday to you.
Let me thank you. I am so 60th birthday, and I'm leaving the 50s behind. And very excited about a new decade in my life. So thank you all for being my ISA family.
Nice.
Hey, Dave.
Hey, guys.
Can you answer one quick question?
Yeah.
Okay, it's Erin here. Hi. Visualizing goals, when I started, it was easy to imagine, because I would imagine rank, it would happen. I imagined things that I could see it, but going back to an old rank, because for someone whose cycles are, my business has gone backwards, but it's going to go forward again. But visualizing an old rank doesn't feel good. I know I have to feel good about it. So do you visualize money? Do you visualize leaders? What do you suggest for that?
Yeah, it's, I can't really answer that, because it's you understanding the principles and then you being able to put yourself in alignment with those principles. I would probably go watch Building Out Your Vision Correctly, or I can't remember how I titled that in the Mechanic to Millionaire YouTube channel. It was something about building out your vision board correctly, because I do give some principles based on, the 3x5 cards. Have you watched that?
Yeah, I have. I'll go back to it. And that's,
yes.
It's been keeping me really stuck. I can, that's what I need to be able to do, is create that picture of where I'm going And
going back to the, like you said, anytime you're feeling dissonance, that's part of your paradigm playing with you and creating those chemicals. I mean, it's still a matter of overcoming those feelings and getting the feeling you want, right? So whether that's done through doing an older goal that you've already hit and now you feel like that's not making you feel good, even though you're not making as much as that old goal, that's just a paradigm that's creating chemicals. Whatever it is, that picture that you need to come up with, I had this thought coming in today was I need to correct that thing that I've been saying about I refine my 3x5 cards every morning. Like, because I'm constantly changing my 3x5s pretty much every time I do them, which would be every morning. I'm not refining them. I'm connecting with the feeling that gets me there that morning around the same objective. I haven't changed the objective that the 3x5 cards are working towards. I've just got to change a little bit of wording or something that I'm focusing on in a way that I get the feeling back to where it's bliss. And that's a mental discipline and a action. That's a work. That's like going to the gym and you got to work out and break down those muscles. It's the breaking down. It's the working to get to that place where do I find that feeling that feels like bliss? That's in alignment with the objective I've created. So you do need to find that objective. If that's 2-star, 20 cycles a week, or if it's 4-star, 60 cycles a week, then it's, I'm so happy and grateful that I make over $3,000 a week. And then you start to refine that by how do I get the feeling around that? And I change that every day. Sometimes they work from day to day, and some of them I never have to change because that particular point always makes me feel good. But I've got to find something that really makes me feel good every day. So I'm refining my 3x5 cards every day. They're constantly in flux, but I'm not changing the objective.
Okay.
So find out what that objective is that's going to move you forward from where you are now, and then start to find how do I refine the feeling around that. And then don't focus on the other things. What your brain is trying to do is get you to, that's the law of non-resistance. You need to build up the mental discipline to not break the law of non-resistance, where you're thinking about the things you don't want.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll get more into that, you guys, as we talk about that and like a dot on the wall. How would that help me not break the law of non-resistance? Okay. Any one last thing that anybody needs to share?
Yeah, I have something, Dave. This is Cindy.
Hey, go for it real quick.
Yeah, I just got back from spending 2 or 3 days with Jimmy Smith at his home, and it was just breathtaking. The number one thing that I realized he had, I think when we're not able to feel it, it's those books. It's the truth. He literally had 1,000 books. It went room to room to room full of books. He's like, take one that speaks to you. And when we left, he gave me two CDs, The Strangest Secret and then Think and Grow Rich. And I know that I get blocked as well, and what will help shift us is these truths. And if, I'm feeling doubtful or I'm feeling insecure, truth changes that, the scriptures, these books. And I think that is more powerful for successful people than, and I'm sorry, I've had laryngitis all weekend, but it's just the reading. So if we're feeling like we can't control these feelings, at least for me, the reading and reading and reading, and of course meditating and seeing, but more truth in our brains, more truth, because we are in self-denial when we aren't realizing what we desire. And our hearts can change, our understanding can shift as we, meditate, pray, or however people explain that. I explain it like prayer and stuff, but we can shift those feelings as our thoughts are continually being fed with truth.
That's right. So, and just to clarify that, you don't need to read 1,000 books to get these principles that are going to move you forward. And I like reading the books where they make it very clear what those principles are. Sometimes, and don't take me wrong on this, the scriptures are truth, but sometimes they're a little harder to get those principles in a way that I can apply them. Sometimes they can be not translated, defined, or taken on as a perception in so many different ways. So what I look for is the people who have understood those principles and speak them in such clarity that there's no question as to what I have to do. And then I combine those with the scriptures I learn, and then that actually makes the scriptures more clear and more defined and less able to interpret in so many different ways, right? So again, I just want to make that point that there are certain truths, like Cindy's saying, that we need to stay focused on here. And we haven't gotten to those really yet. We're leading to it, right? Okay. All right, you guys, thanks so much for those shares, you guys. That's gold and well said. So with that, you guys have a rocking day, and watch for any attachments that may or may not come up this week. All right, you guys have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.